I just felt crushed because in my mind, I was supposed to be the CEO of something, leading something, the breadwinner of my family. But the point is, I wasn't raised to be in the position I now found myself in. And I've been a Christian all my life, but I didn't have the close relationship with Christ that I needed. And so as I started to hear all these no's, I'm questioning, everything about my life. What do I do as a man? I don't feel very manly right now. I don't know. I was present with my kids physically most of the time, but mentally I was kind of checked out. I was thinking, okay, I need to be doing this, that, and the other thing. And ultimately I settled on the fact that nobody, even though I had all this great skill and education, nobody was going to hire me. I was going to have to do my own thing.
Welcome to Unmute with Priya, the podcast where silence ends, voices rise, and women rediscover the freedom to speak and live authentically, especially in life after 40. This show is proudly sponsored by Project Icon. I'm your host, Priya Sudarsanam. Let's dive into today's conversation. My guest today is Mike Van Pelt, founder of American Family Renaissance and True Man Life Coaching. He's an author, a speaker, and host of the True Man podcast. And through his work, Mike helps men break free from isolation, rediscover their purpose, and lead with greater confidence, faith, and authenticity. Mike, welcome to the show.
Priya, thanks for having me on. Man, I just know this is going to be fun.
This is going to be a lot of fun. We were having fun even before we started recording.
That's right.
Yeah.
You got to have fun.
Congratulations. You are my second male guest. Not that I like to have gender differentiation and all of that stuff on my podcast.
Why was I not number one? Doggone it. Why was I not?
Because the other person booked in first. But yeah, this is going to be a great conversation because you're talking about some of the things that women, especially the women that I speak to at midlife, navigating menopause and this huge transition in our life are going through as well. And men are going through this as well. So it will be great to bring light to this conversation, to know that this doesn't discriminate. It goes across everyone.
No. And you know what's interesting? Now, I am coming up on 30 years of marriage. So,
congratulations.
I know what I've gone through as a man, and of course know what I've seen my wife go through as a woman and some of the things that she's been up against. So, I've had an opportunity. I've been a stay-at-home dad at one point. I've seen my wife go through her C-level season of management. So I know what women go through in the marketplace. And so it's really interesting. I've had this great perspective on men and women and a lot of issues that we all go through.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. What a journey in 30 years. Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. So let's talk about that because, you said you were a stay-at-home dad. There's so many things people, I think from when we're so young, where all of these rules are put into our head of what things are supposed to look like, how things are supposed to be, right? And I feel like men, they believe that they have to carry everything alone, or they have to be that solid person. They have to be the breadwinner. They have to do all of these things. What's been your experience with that and navigating that?
Well, we're groomed for it.
Yes.
Yeah, we're groomed for that. And, I'm not saying somebody intentionally came along and said, well, this is the way it is. And I'm not even saying that's the way kids are being brought up now. I'm 56. So I grew up in a generation where we still were, okay, you go to college, you graduate college, you got your degree, you get the house, the picket fence, the dog, a couple of kids, and a great wife. Okay. And by the way, you're the breadwinner. And, what I have learned in my infinite wisdom now is that was a setup. Now, nobody meant to set that up. It was just a setup. It was, to a large degree, you may even call it a lie, because the world just doesn't work that way. It certainly does not work that way now. And so, what's interesting about all of that was I didn't set out to be a stay-at-home dad. It really all happened by accident because I had really lost my identity, or maybe I didn't have any identity at all at that point. I had a sales background, and I was not fulfilled in the least with what I was doing. And I remember having this conversation, with my wife, and You it really came about because even when our kids were very, very young, we would never say, "Oh, we're gonna take you to daycare today," or whatever. We would say, "We're gonna take you to school," because we were trying to establish from the get-go that education was important, no matter what you did with education.
Right.
And so we were just trying to establish that fact, and what I realized early on when I was trying to figure out what Mike's gonna do when he becomes a big boy, I'm still trying to figure that out to some degree,
We all.
was, I'm sitting here saying education, education to my kids, but I'm missing something. I had not completed my college degree. I had a lot of fun when I went to college, but I didn't complete it. And I thought to myself, well, now you're not role modeling well. You're a hypocrite. And so I decided to go back and complete my college degree while I was a stay-at-home dad, and I also started doing a lot of volunteer work in my community and in my church. And it was during that time where things started to fall into place where I realized, you've got a great skill set. You love working with nonprofits. This looks like, man, maybe God's got you moving in this direction. Because I love nonprofits. I love the work that they do. I love the fact that they're boots on the ground in the community. And so I started putting feelers out there after I graduated about, trying to find a job. Crickets, nothing. And it didn't feel like anybody knew what to do with me. And so as I started exploring the nonprofit thing, I thought, well, maybe, I think you could be a nonprofit executive, but what do these guys have outside of experience that you don't have? Well, some of them have master's degree. Okay, well, I'll get my master's degree. That'll be the difference maker, right? Okay, now I've really lost people. I'm
Yeah.
overly educated. I've been volunteering. I've been a stay-at-home. They have no idea what to do with me. Here's the problem. I began to internalize what I was hearing from them, which was either crickets or negative feedback, right? And I just felt crushed because in my mind, I was supposed to be the CEO of something, leading something, the breadwinner of my
Well,
family. But oh, and by the way, my wife was doing just fine in that area. But the point is, I wasn't raised to be in the position I now found myself in. And I've been a Christian all my life, but I didn't have the close relationship with Christ that I needed. And so as I started to hear all these no's, I'm questioning, everything about
right.
my life. What do I do as a man? I don't feel very manly right now. I don't know. And I was present with my kids physically most of the time, but mentally, I was kind of checked out. I was thinking, okay, I need to be doing this, that, and the other thing. And ultimately, I settled on the fact that nobody, even though I had all this great skill and education, nobody was going to hire me. I was going to have to do my own thing. I started some business consulting stuff. I met a buddy at a networking event and we began talking about that networking event. And we quickly realized we didn't like the networking event. We were going to do our own thing, but it turned into a men's small group. And this is where my life shifted. Getting together with a man who was as hungry as I was to figure out what's going on in life. Why do I feel this way? And
Yeah.
we started asking really serious, deep questions. And by the way, I definitely was mid-life at that point because I was in my late 30s. And I think I commonly find that's where it really hits men hard. And it was through getting together with men who are very oriented in Christ, who were really digging in and looking for more and trying to find that freedom in their life from wearing the mask, from not having the identity. It was in all of that that I found intimacy with Christ, and everything shifted when I did
Everything changed.
because I wanted that connection. I really craved that connection. And it was me running to him as fast as I know he was running to me, as fast as he's running to everybody, because that kind of love and intimacy is available for everybody. And my life shifted. And really, that's a quick story to get to. Well, hey, look, here's where I am today. I've written some books. I'm doing a lot of content writing because I think many men have fallen into the trap that I fell into, that my identity was tied to a car, a house, my job. It's not.
Absolutely.
Yeah, your identity is tied to Christ first, and you have to love yourself before you can love anybody else. And you just simply cannot be the best husband that you can be if you don't like yourself. And I went through a very long period in my early adult life. I didn't like myself. and I just didn't want to admit it.
That you bring up so oh my gosh, I could wish I could unpack every little thing. I just wanted you had so many amazing things that you said in there. One of those things is, yeah, I think we go through life not even thinking about do we like ourselves, and we just go through the motions and get to a point and where am I fulfilled, like, to understand that. And I think that that's when people hit this point where it's just like, I'm not happy with any of this, like, I'm doing all the things, I have all the things, and yet there's still this emptiness. And that goes across everyone. It's not just for women,
Yeah,
and it's
it's a very difficult process to go through. It
yeah,
also requires you to take a very deep, hard look in the mirror.
absolutely.
And, to this day, I mean, I'm not immune from it. I go take a hard look in the mirror quite commonly because with everything that I'm doing, I feel morally obligated to be my best so that I can help people better their best.
Right.
And that's the only way that I know how to go out and impact the world. And so even this morning, for example, I have a morning routine and some people would say, "Holy cow, you're crazy." I mean, I was up at 4:30. I get my workout stuff in the garage, or if it's a cardio day, I'm out on the street running. I'm up at 4:30 in the morning and I'm going to spend a couple hours working out. Then I'm going to go and have my Bible study and meditation. I'm going to recalibrate my day, make sure my calendar, everything's lined up. Then I go get ready and then I'm at my desk by probably 8:30 in the morning. And so why do I do that? Because again, I'm here to help people. I'm here to impact people's lives. And some people would say, "Well, I know people that, said that they were called." Listen, I studied this because I don't like the term coach. I liked it, I don't like it at all because it's been watered down. But I will tell you a quick story here, and I hope I'm not blabbering too much. But when I was 15 years old, I took a general business class when I was in high school, and the teacher said, "Okay, we're going to write a paper. That's the whole purpose of this course. Write a paper on what you want to be when you grow up." And I only wanted to be one thing. There was no plan B. I wanted to be one thing and one thing only. I wanted to be a college basketball coach, period. Bottom line. That was it. And so I wrote to several college basketball coaches around the country and asked them, "What does it take to be a college basketball coach? I want to know. I want to be one. That's all I want to do." And I don't know what happened to many of those letters, but I'm going to hold this up for the camera for those of you on camera. This is a letter that I received back from Coach George Raveling, who at the time was at the University of Iowa. And March 6, 1985, I was a young whippersnapper. But one important thing that Coach Raveling said in there that is still applicable to this day, and that is the one thing that he truly loves about being a college basketball coach is that he gets to see the young men that he coached grow up and be productive citizens. And that's the number one thing that he gets out of coaching college basketball. Now, today, I'm not coaching college basketball,
Right.
but I'm mentoring people to go out in the community and be the best that they can be. And so I see over the years, even the trials and the tribulations and the things that I went through, nothing ever changed. I may not be a college basketball coach, but I'm here today doing exactly what Coach Raveling said he did at Iowa outside of Xing and Oing and drawing up plays and going to games. And so I know I'm doing exactly, precisely what God has called me to do. And
Absolutely.
so that's why being a coach and a mentor is so important to me. And I'm very passionate about it. And I spend a lot of time in self study and reflection on how I can be better to help others. So just a little side story there on how I got to this point.
It's amazing. Everything that you're sharing is just hitting me at a place like, wow, this is incredible. But you also bring up something really interesting as far as men go and being that person in the family. The conversations that I've had with men is they weren't allowed to take that hard look. They weren't, because if they had to take that hard look inside, that might mean bringing up emotions
Yeah.
and actually feeling or actually crying or actually getting emotional, and they weren't allowed to do that. Did you have that experience as well? Did you have that?
I would say more or less. I would say that that just describes a lot of guys. I mean, the
Yeah,
fact of the matter is that if I fell down on the little league field, I mean, the first thing everybody does at a little league, get up, go, 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 and I think that that's just kind of what life looks like so much of the time, right? You don't say ouch, you don't say it hurts as a man, you just get up and you go.
You go.
And, I just did a recorded a podcast for my own show on this, so it's really fresh in my mind. So I'm gonna give you a TV character actually right now to describe what I believe you're talking about. And that TV character has got to be one of my favorite TV characters of all time, Rip Wheeler from Yellowstone and Dutton Ranch. Now, Rip, if you don't watch this show, you should. Rip is what I like to refer to as the modern day Marlboro Man. This is a guy who is, dresses, he's a cowboy, and he on the outside looks like he's got it all together. He's cool as a cucumber. Even when he's fighting, he's in control of himself and his body. It's amazing. But on the inside, this guy's been shredded. He didn't have a childhood. He was raised by John Dutton, the man that brought him to the Dutton Ranch, and he's had to figure life out on his own. But along the way, he has a very incredible, tender heart. He'd have to in order to have any level of control over Beth Dutton, his wife, right? Because she's crazy. She's crazy. She's crazy. But that is the story of so many guys. We got to be stoic on the outside. But what's going on the inside is equally as important because I commonly say, I help guys get out of their head and into their heart. And we have to connect with our heart. That's how we connect with our emotions. And women are really good about connecting with their emotions. They're really good about, having girlfriends and doing group stuff. And men, for whatever reason, we've decided that isolation is our route. And we do really stupid things when we isolate.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, it's one of the reasons why I encourage men to find small men's groups and tribes. But so many of us were raised to be that stoic, masculine man is kind of what we were told or how Hollywood portrays it. And it simply does not work.
You bring up when you're stoic, the opposite of that, being vulnerable, showing vulnerability. And Brene
Yes.
Brown talks about vulnerability all the time. Did you find that you were able to be vulnerable with your wife and with other people in your family, or were you holding on to being that stoic person?
Well, I think, a lot of times you hold on to it. I think, again, I go back to that demarcation point from a faith perspective. That's where the real me began to show up. It wasn't a show. So much of my life was meant just trying to be a show. And I wasn't the real me till I had a couple of drinks in me. Then I could let down the mask a little bit and people probably got some insight on that. And I'm not a problem drinker. I've never had a problem drinking. There's probably when I was young, I did too much of it. But, when I really started looking at me, what I realized is that why is it that all of a sudden after a few drinks, you're all of a sudden comfortable with yourself, but when you're not intoxicated, you don't like you, and so there was a lot of self-reflection that went on. And I think that most importantly, as you've heard me mention, is that finding that relationship with Christ. What I learned by the study of scripture and other things was that I am worthy. I am beloved. I am the man God's called me to be. And I'm okay with me. And the scars and the bruises, those are important things. The wounds that we all carry because they're clues how we can change and develop and grow. And so sometimes I've had multiple mentors introduce this concept to my life. When we slow down in order to speed up, we're able to slow down enough to get insight into our own lives so we can love ourselves so that we can be closer to those around us. I mean, you don't get to 30 years of marriage without doing something right. And I'm not saying we haven't had a few, knockdown dragouts and ups and downs. Everybody does.
Right.
It's not it's not the downs that make the relationship. It's learning from it that is what builds that relationship. And so,
Yeah, I think there's this misconception along all the other misconceptions that you have to be perfect when two people get together in a relationship. You're getting together as two perfectly great people, and now you're going to have a perfect relationship. But really, yeah,
I'm a recovering perfectionist, so this I understand. Yeah.
And one of your key messages is the power of asking for help. Now, when you talk about that, it's about asking help from others as well as asking help from Christ to share a little bit more about.
Yeah, all the above. And this really came out of something that happened to me in my youth, which was in 1976. I had a teacher that noticed I was going cross-eyed in class. And so they sent me to the optometrist, and he had me do a test and held a projector up to my eyes and said, "What do you see?" And I said, "I see the moon jumping over the cow." And he just laughed and said, "No, jumping over the moon." And I had astigmatism. So it was hard for me to get my eyes focused in order to see something like that. And so I went into glasses, which was really unusual in 1976. But what's interesting about that and why I tell that story is I was also very introverted back then. And it wasn't the bullying, because I was a well-liked child for the most part. I didn't get bullied too badly, but it was the adults coming up to me and saying, "Boy, those glasses make you look smart." And if glasses make you look smart and you're introverted at the same time, it's really a recipe for disaster, because you stop putting your hand up and asking for help. And so, I probably didn't do as well in school as I could have, because I just stopped asking questions and I internalized everything. And unfortunately, that just followed me along into adulthood. And so, the ongoing joke that everybody talks about when I bring this up is, the joke about being on the road and your wife saying, maybe you need to pull over and ask for directions. And no man
No, man.
will pull over and ask for directions when they've been told that. And,
They
and
won't even get out the GPS.
yeah,
And they're gonna
yeah.
fix
Now we
it.
have GPS. It does make it easier, but the power of asking for help is not just a faith-based thing. It is. You should always go to God for help, but more importantly, and I specifically talk about this with the men that I'm around, because they have the hardest time, is that we don't go to our buddies and say, "Man, I've been feeling this thing," or whatever the case may be. And one of the interesting things I've commonly found in some of the men's small group that I go to is, like, we'll start on a topic, and the next thing you know, you'll hear a guy say, "Oh, you," because although our stories are unique to us, and they are, we all have a story. We're all part of the larger story, but we have our story in that. They're unique to us, but somebody else has gone through something very similar. And it's important to be able to have that conversation with them so you're not alone. And we live in a time and a place where we've never been more connected. Never been more connected. I mean, we could be online 24 hours a day if we wanted to.
Oh, look how we connected. I would never have
Yeah.
known that.
Yeah. So and there are some important aspects of that. We can do some great work, just like being on this podcast and talking with people. But we've also never been at a time where the statistics say we've ever been more lonely. Now, isn't it funny that we could be connected and lonely at the same time? And it's because we've lost that personal touch. And the thing of it is, whether we're male or female, we all want to be seen. We all want to be heard. We all want to be valued and cared for. And we really do desire it and crave it. And so how do you get that? Well, you may get a little bit of that online, but I got to say, even this morning, I was at a networking event. I love to go to networking events and meet people,
Right.
because you're with people. You're
Yeah.
in person. And there's nothing better than seeing somebody not just talk, but their body language, their eyes, how they're moving their hands, and all that. And we get a little bit of that online, but we all crave that personal touch. And, it's part of our DNA. Priya.
Absolutely.
It's part of our DNA. The reason that God brought Eve to earth is to be a companion for Adam. He didn't want him lonely.
Yeah.
You
You you
know,
bring you bring up loneliness, and immediately my mind went to when I lived in my 20s and I lived in New York City. New York City, people everywhere. And I remember thinking, I don't even think I said anything because I didn't know how to ask for help at the time, but thinking to myself, "Oh my God, I'm in a city with so many people. I see people all the time, and I'm so lonely. I feel so alone." Like, I felt so isolated there. And it took me moving to a rural town where there's nobody to be with myself to actually not be lonely. Then I was with myself and discovered myself. So that, you could be around so much and think, "Oh, I've got all this noise, the internet, the social media, all of that." And really understanding where that loneliness being and I think also being honest with yourself
Yeah,
that
and
you're
I think
lonely.
I think, you gotta know a thing or 2 about yourself. So, my wife and I, we've lived in 2 significantly large cities. One, when we were young, we didn't have any kids. We were in Houston, Texas, which was a blast, and then when we had kids, we went, "Wait a second, what are we doing here?" And we recently moved to Bentonville, Arkansas from Atlanta, Georgia. Now, you talk about 2 ends of the spectrum. If I get on the interstate in Atlanta, Georgia, number 1, you're probably sitting in traffic, but, if you're not sitting in traffic, you're going close to 100 miles an hour to get to where you wanna get to. The pace of life there was quite a bit different than it is here. Here, how long does it take, honey? Oh, about 15 minutes. And we're not in a hurry. It's a slower pace. I like that. I love the people. I love the fact that the people slow down to have a conversation. We get to know each other. We're not in a hurry to get from point A to point B. I like that. Now, some people may like the speed. Some people may like it. I didn't. And we are so grateful to be here in an area that quite frankly really fits our personality and it fits where we're at in our married life. Now we're at a point where it's almost strange to say now we're empty nesters.
Wow.
So, it's just, the only thing I'm trying to take care of is my dog who's sitting down here at my feet while we record and make sure he gets his daily help. But, this is part of doing the work, Priya, is, where do you wanna live and why do you wanna be there? So many of us now have the opportunity, for this office I'm in now, if I didn't wanna leave it on a daily basis, I could virtually get everything done that I wanna get done. I just need the people that the personal contact with people, and so, I always make time to get out and about, but we can't forget with all this technology. At the event I was at this morning, multiple people, everybody's talking about AI. It's the big buzzword, AI, AI, AI.
Yeah.
And yeah, it does some jobs better and helps us, move on. But the thing that I was talking with people about is, yeah, I use AI, but it can't replace relationship. And that's what we need to be working on, our relationship with ourselves, our relationship with our wife, our relationship with our husband, our relationship with our kids. On the
Thank
day
God.
on the day on God, and the day you die, those people are going to be the people around you.
Yeah.
They are the most important people in your life, period.
So nurture and nourish those relationships and
Yeah, 100%.
yeah.
It's, they're so critically important. And this is part of, I believe, the body of work that I've been called in to help men with. Don't get me wrong, I'm not some relationship expert. I'm just here to start the conversation.
Well, I mean, it sounds like you have gone through that process of transformation. You've gone through that life of
Yeah.
questioning who you are. And so, just even from those two perspectives, you can help others because now you're in a place where just from, correct me if I'm wrong, where you have that fulfillment, you know your purpose.
Yeah.
You're here, you're here to serve on a higher level, more beyond the nice house, beyond the money, beyond all those
I'm
things.
I'm I'm here you are, that's right. I'm here to help, I'm here to serve. What's amazing to me, and I've had this conversation with some other people that are kind of in my space, I'm here to help.
Yeah.
Use
Yep.
me,
I love it.
you use me, and I'm amazed at how many people don't or
Don't.
won't, you know, or just walk on by like everything's okay. I know the statistics. I know it's not just okay. And oh, and by the way, who wants to live just okay? I don't know about you, but I want greatness in my life. I
Me
want to be surrounded by greatness in my
too.
life. So, but that's just me.
I'm with you there. That's why we're having this great conversation. Let's talk about American Family Renaissance and True Man Life Coaching. So,
Hmm.
yeah, I wanna hear more about the
Well,
American Family Renaissance.
yeah, so American Family Renaissance was one of those funny things that happened. So I was working with a gentleman who's been in professional speaking world for a number of years because again, this goes back to greatness. I wrote something in a collaborative book, the power of asking for help. And I knew that I was onto something because I would bring it up periodically and people would go, I want to hear more about that. And so I called him and I said, listen, I think I have something here that I think it's good. And I said, I could probably take it to the stage now, but I just feel like it would be mediocre. And I said, I'm not in a place in my life where I want to do mediocre anything. I've done mediocre. I don't want to do that anymore. I want it to be the best. I want to work with the best. I want to talk the best. I want to be the best speaker, And I said, do you know anybody that can help me? Now, I knew he would say yes, but I wanted to ask. That's what I do. And so, we started working together. And in the period that we were working on that, one day I was talking about how American family values they're gone. And he said, well, that's because nobody's teaching them anymore. And so we started to talk a little bit more about that. And one of his mentors was Zig Ziglar, the great
Wow.
Zig Ziglar.
Yeah.
And he said, you know what Zig used to say? And I'm like, oh, come on, Scott. Zig used to say all kinds of things. What did he say? God, family, and country. And so there it began. And we started talking about, the American family renaissance and really what it stood for and the values that we could teach. Because I was starting to feel a little limited in this whole idea of true man because, some women would check out. They would think, well, this is just for men. No. What I do, well, men are my audience, families are what I'm after because we need men to lead their families well. Now, when I say that, I know some of you just your muscles got tense and let me explain what I mean by that. Okay. Men, lead with your wife, but lead. Be a leader.
Be a leader.
Your kids want you to be the role model. Okay. I'm not saying that one is greater than the other. I'm not trying to create a rivalry here. But, again, I'll take you back to the Garden of Eden. When Adam and Eve eats the apple, Adam already knows the rules and doesn't engage with Eve, although we don't know how far he was from Eve at that point. It could have been a couple of feet. He didn't stop her, and then they ran and hid. I call this the passivity of Adam, right? So again, this is part of our DNA. Don't be a passive man, be a participatory one. Be an equal with your wife, but lead your family well. Because
Yeah.
here is the challenge. Your kids, your competition, men and moms, your competition are smartphones, computers, all these other distractions and things that your kids get their hands on. Those things are competing for your voice if you allow it. And those things will lead your children, whether you want to believe that or not, if you don't. And so we need to lead well. And I would like to think that one of the things, I would like to think if my kids were here right now, that they would say this. One of the things that I think my wife and I did a really good job of was raising our children together. Now, of course, my wife would say she did all the work, and we'll go ahead and give her the credit. But she did a wonderful job. I mean, she was, at times working 60, 70 hours a week and never missing a kid's event. So she was amazing, continues to be amazing, and just an incredible woman at what she was able to pull off. And I'm just so damn proud of her for all that she's accomplished professionally and personally. But, we got to co-parent. We got to lead together,
Lead
lead
together.
our families well. And so, but the whole idea around the American family renaissance is really bringing together, okay, how do we bring these values back? How do we start talking about them more? How do we create the conversation? And one of the things that I've always felt is important that I do is just facilitate the conversation. Not be a finger pointer, not be a fixer, just kind of be the think tank, if you will, of, okay, let's have the conversation. Y'all, we need to do better. We can do better. Having the biggest house, the most expensive car in the neighborhood, you can't take it with you.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't take it with you. But I think striving for better is just is a goal for everyone. And I think if when you're striving for better, then it's just going to lead to more fulfillment, internal fulfillment, not looking
100%.
for anything out
I
there.
I'll tell you that I really the American Family Renaissance, I'm just gonna say this is shameless promotion. AmericanFamilyRenaissance.org, we've been working on it. We continue to work on it. It's out there, it's up. Where does true man land underneath all that? Well, it filters right into it because, we wanna continue building the men up, but we wanna do it in a way where we're talking about how we can build up the American family as well. Because that aspect of life, I've heard people say, "Well, Mike, you moved to Bentonville, Arkansas. That's like living in Mayberry now." Well, you know what? I like Mayberry.
You like me, right?
I like Mayberry, and it ain't all sunshine and rainbows here either. So, that doesn't exist. But, I what I hope we can do in the future with the American Family Renaissance, I would really yeah, we're gonna have an online summit and bring that out this fall, and we've got 6 great speakers for that that it's all recorded, and we're getting everything ready for that right now. But I don't want stuff online, man. I want to go out and I want to have audiences everywhere, and I want to start talking about how we can have an American family renaissance across this great nation and help prepare families to be the best that they can be. And that's the mission. That's what's driving me right
Amazing
now.
mission. Yeah, that's a great mission. And then as far as True Man Life Coaching, and don't worry, you can promote on here. All your links are going to be in the show notes. How can somebody work with you? In what capacity do you work with men? Do they have to apply? Go to your website, share the process.
I'm always open to having conversations. I've had to step back here a little bit and be a little bit more picky about my one on one coaching. And really, where a lot of this is leading is to more group activity. And I think that's more important than listening to me anyway. But group activity, and I have some things that we're working on right now. Group activity is important because it's good to be around a group of men and learn. And so there's some courses that I'm putting together where we may do some group stuff to, at 10, 12 week type courses that and opportunities that we do. But I say all that to say you can tell I have no shortage of things that I'm working on. But I say all that to say that I'm easily accessible. Anybody can go to my website and get on my calendar. Anybody can reach out to me and send me an email at mike@truemanlifecoaching.com. And I entertain all of those conversations because if I can't help you, I may know somebody that can. And more importantly, I want you to know that I care about you and you're worthy because you may be in a place right now where you don't think that that is true. And it is. You are a beloved son or daughter of God, and you need to know you are worthy and you are loved. And so I entertain those conversations, and wherever it goes, it goes. And I try to customize a lot of things that I do to the individual person because everybody's different in what they want and their why and what they need. So,
Amazing.
but feel free to reach out to me anytime.
Like I said, we'll make sure to put those links in the show notes. And you actually answered my question that I was going to ask you in closing. But it was, if a man's listening to this today and he's feeling stuck, he's feeling what you described when you first came on this podcast, disconnected and convinced he has to figure everything out alone. Everything on the outside looks good, but he's 2 seconds away from losing everything internally. Where should he start? Where would you suggest he start? And you already
It's
said
just
some.
like how I talk, you just put your hand up in the air and you say, help. I need help. I need help. And, that could be something as basic as a conversation. It could be something as basic as you and I get together and you grab a piece of notebook paper and you just start writing because we all have a why. We all have a reason for being here on earth. Now you may go, I don't know what it is. Well, we're going to figure it out together because it's inside you. You just need somebody to ask you the right questions to bring it out. And I really, really do believe that. 3 pillars of a true man that I always talk about: know God, know yourself, and live fully. And if you can do those 3 things that you can make, then you can jump into the true man framework, which is to make that shift in your life. And when you're doing that, you're overcoming those fears and those barriers that you put in the way of your life. And you can start to become the man that God's called you to be.
Mike, this has been an incredible conversation. Thank you for sharing just even a glimpse of your world, what you do, and the impact that you're making. And your mission is huge. So really, really honored that you've been a guest today. And thank you for everything you're doing.
Priya, thanks for having me on the show. I really enjoyed talking with you.
Same here. And this show was brought to you by Project Icon.